Hey, Marcus with MarcusBlankenship.com here. I get a lot of questions about how much as a team lead, as a tech lead, the answer is probably just enough, but no more. And that's a super vague, kind of useless answer. But I think this question is so prevalent because so many of us stepped into that engineering leadership position. By the way, I'm going to use the word leadership to mean tech lead, team lead, manager, director, CTO. I'm not going to use the word manager because I think we manage things, but we have to lead people. So the idea here is that you stepped into it after becoming really good at being a good engineer. And of course, it only makes sense that your engineering past is the basis for a lot of the conversations you're going to have with your team. For example, you don't just sit down and talk to your team about accounting usually. You don't usually talk to them about balance sheets. You don't usually talk to them about product owner stuff. You have engineering conversations with your engineers. So one of the most common problems that people perceive they have is staying sharp on the engineering. And I have a few thoughts about this. Number one thought, if you were an engineer for more than 5 years before you actually started leading people or projects or being a tech lead or whatever, if you did that for more than 5 years, my guess is you are plenty sharp for the next 3 to 4 years. Okay, I don't think you need to take on another consolidated coding project for a while. Now, the reason is you've already developed a really strong base for thinking in algorithms, thinking in code, debugging, problem solving, all that stuff. Like, to be honest, I haven't written production code in probably 7 or 8 years. That was a part of a production process, probably more like 15 if I was part of a bigger team. But that doesn't mean I couldn't help with debugging, and I didn't know where a lot of the gotchas were and a lot of the common problems. So I do think it's important that engineering leaders have a background in engineering, and I do think it's important you stay sharp. But there are other ways to do this. And as I was talking with somebody today, the number one thing they said to me was, they said, you know what, Marcus, I try and stay out of the critical path. I think that's really smart. What they meant by that was they don't take on stories in the sprint. They work alongside the sprint, and they take on stories that are outside of the core feature path generally. This includes, but of course isn't limited to, debugging. I'm sorry, that's not actually what I meant. This includes things like prototyping, tool building, automation of other kinds of things, process automation, connecting systems, maybe as I said, prototyping, exploring a new idea, pairing with a programmer to help them debug or kind of figure out how things are working or why it's not working, mentoring, training, investigating new languages, new frameworks. I used to have to do that a lot because I would have to be making a recommendation. So there's all kinds of places where you can stay sharp with coding. It's not just, doesn't have to be just about theoretically reading a book or this or that. The reality is there's still a lot of engineering thinking to do. I just want to encourage you to stay away from the engineering work that is line of sight with product delivery. Now, why is that? One, you have a manager schedule, not a maker schedule. And your work means you're going to have a lot more interruptions. This person today told me the most dissatisfying part of the first team lead job they ever took was they were constantly getting interrupted, and they felt like their team was a bother to them. If that is the case for you, you need to shift your priorities. You need to say to yourself, the team is priority one, and making sure they're not only unblocked, but making sure they are happy, productive, they have the right context, they have all the right information, and that you're protecting them from outside crap. You're kind of a crap umbrella sometimes. So there is so much other work to be done that you're going to get interrupted a lot. And then, of course, the second thing is your team actually may not want you to code that much. I realize this is hard to stomach, okay? But the reality is that if you're coding, if you spend 15 minutes coding, that is two things inherently. One, it is something your team didn't code, so they don't know what you wrote. And number two, it is you not spending 15 minutes on something that only you can do. Okay, you sit in a unique position generally in most organizations. You can move resources, you can affect things they can't affect. That's what your team wants you to do. I've worked for a lot of bosses in my time. I've even worked for some that were really good coders, but the ones that had the biggest impact on me were not the ones who were great at doing the technical work, but the ones who are willing to say, I'll set the technical work aside, we'll have all those conversations, but this role is about people and leadership and management. And that's what this role is about. They embraced their role. They didn't run back to the compiler so that's what I want to encourage you to do. If you're frustrated you're not getting enough coding time, rethink your position. Ask yourself, what kind of boss would you want to work for? Do you think it matters if your boss codes a lot? No, you probably think you just wish your boss would do their job so you could do yours. And I'll just leave you with that today, okay? I'm Marcus at marcusblankenship.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter and we can chat. You can write me in your biggest problem. Maybe I'll answer it on one of these lives. All right, take it easy. Go talk to your team, okay? Thanks. Bye-bye.